Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to do something different. In the past few episodes, we've been placing Greek geometry and Eastern geometry side by side, seeing their respective postures, their respective sciences, and their modern echoes. But today, I want to stop and perform a real self-correction. Because in the past few episodes, I have been praising the wholeness of Eastern geometry and criticizing the cutting nature of Greek geometry. This is not fair. The deepest achievement of Greek geometry is not any particular theorem, not any particular school, it is a methodology. It is a methodology called precise definition. This methodology has, in the past 2,500 years, supported almost every achievement of Western civilization. Its fruits in science, technology, law, politics, and economics are unprecedented in human history. And the absence of this one capacity in the Chinese tradition is a real cost. But, entering the 21st century, this methodology itself is running into trouble on every front. Gödel. Quantum mechanics. Wittgenstein. AI. Category theory. 5 completely different fields, from 5 completely different directions, attacking the same thing, precise definition. Today we will do 2 things: see these 5 battlefields clearly, and honestly acknowledge the real cost of the Eastern tradition. First, let's talk about what precise definition is. The very act of defining is itself an invention of Greek civilization. Aristotle established the classical method of definition, called genus plus differentia. Let's take an example. How do we define human? The Greek definition: human equals rational animal. This method assumes 3 things. Everything has an essence, that essence can be precisely defined without confusion, and this essence is independent of context. If these 3 conditions hold, then language can precisely capture the world. The entire intellectual project of Greek civilization is built on this assumption. Definition is the act of cutting, separating human from non-human, justice from injustice. The more precise the cut, the more reliable the knowledge. This has been the methodological foundation of Western science for 2,500 years, precise definition and rigorous reasoning, the cornerstone of the entire edifice of knowledge. In 1900, the great mathematician David Hilbert delivered a landmark lecture at the International Congress of Mathematicians in Paris, outlining 23 unsolved problems that would define mathematics for the century ahead. His deepest dream was to build all of mathematics upon a single formal system, completely rigorous, completely precise, and completely self-consistent. Starting from a small set of basic axioms, through strict logical reasoning alone, all mathematical truths could be derived. This was the supreme ideal of the Greek geometric tradition. For 30 years, mathematicians worked with heads bowed, building formal systems, proving theorem after theorem, steadily advancing toward that ultimate goal. Then, in 1931, a 25-year-old named Kurt Gödel published a paper that would send shockwaves through the entire mathematical world. Gödel proved that any sufficiently powerful formal system is either incomplete or inconsistent, a single sentence that shook the very foundations of mathematics. In plain terms, any rigorous, precisely defined formal system cannot completely prove itself. There will always exist statements that are true yet unprovable within the system. This was not a technical problem, nor a failure of intelligence. Precise definition itself, as a method, has structural limits. Complete formalization is structurally impossible. The second battlefield, quantum mechanics. In 1927, the physicist Werner Heisenberg introduced his famous uncertainty principle. The position and momentum of a particle cannot both be measured precisely at the same time. The more precisely position is pinned down, the more uncertain the momentum becomes, and vice versa. Many people assume this is merely a limitation of imperfect instruments. It is not. Heisenberg was not saying our tools are imprecise, he was pointing to something far more fundamental. Before being measured, a particle simply does not possess both a precise position and momentum simultaneously. At its deepest level, reality itself ontologically refuses precise definition. The Greek cognitive assumption presupposes that everything has precise attributes, waiting patiently to be measured and defined. But quantum mechanics tells us, at the deepest level, there are simply no precise attributes waiting to be defined. It's not that our tools are inadequate. The world itself simply isn't built that way. Precise definition, at the quantum level, has collided with its own ontological limit. The third battlefield, philosophy. The ambition of precise definition now enters the oldest domain of human thought. Wittgenstein, perhaps the most fascinating figure in philosophy. He spent his entire life overturning his own ideas. The early Wittgenstein wrote a book called the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. Its core thesis: the world consists of facts, language consists of propositions, and each proposition precisely corresponds to one fact. Meaning can be precisely captured, language can map onto the world one-to-one. This is the ultimate philosophical expression of Greek-style precise definition. After finishing the book, convinced that philosophy's fundamental problems were solved, Wittgenstein left academia and became an elementary school teacher. But decades later, he returned to Cambridge, and began dismantling everything he had once argued. The later Wittgenstein produced a work called Philosophical Investigations. Its central claim: meaning is not something precisely defined, meaning is use. A word's meaning is how it is used in life. Many words have no essential definition, they share only family resemblance, similar to one another like family members, yet with no single essence binding them all. Consider, what is a game? You say, an activity with rules and winners. But what about solitary play? No winner, yet still a game. You say, an activity involving play. What about the Olympics? You say, non-productive activity. What about professional sports? Every definition is defeated. Yet everyone uses the word game without confusion, everyone knows what it means. Its meaning lies not in definition, but in use. Wittgenstein spent his life proving, precise definition is, structurally, impossible in human language, and this strikes at the deepest assumption of Greek geometric methodology. The fourth battlefield, artificial intelligence. The newest front, and perhaps the most decisive of all. The early era of AI, from 1956 to the 1980s, was dominated by what we call symbolic AI, or GoFi, good old-fashioned AI. This is the highest ideal of Greek geometric methodology: precise definition plus rigorous inference can exhaust truth. The logic seemed perfect: human equals rational animal, cat equals furry, four-legged, meowing domestic animal, define everything precisely, and a computer could recognize anything. This dream was pursued for 30 years. Mathematicians worked hard, built formal systems, proved theorems. The result? Not partial failure. Complete, utter failure. Symbolic AI could play chess, because chess rules are perfectly precise, and every possible move can be enumerated. But symbolic AI could not recognize a single cat. Because cat has no precise definition, every real cat is different. Every cat looks different, every angle, every lighting, every pose is unique, endlessly defying any fixed definition. Faced with a cat it had never seen, symbolic AI was completely helpless. Its precise definitions collapsed before the infinite variety of reality. Then, after the 1980s, neural networks emerged, carrying an entirely different vision of what intelligence could be. In the 2010s, the deep learning revolution exploded, neural networks grew ever deeper, and AI capabilities advanced by leaps and bounds. And today, large language models have arrived, their capabilities utterly beyond anything symbolic AI could have ever dreamed of. These AIs use no precise definitions whatsoever, instead they rely on massive data, fuzzy pattern recognition, and vast networks of relationships between concepts. AI has no definition of cat, but it has billions of cat images and a vast relational web connecting the word cat to every other word. They work with relationships, not definitions, and this single shift changed the entire destiny of artificial intelligence. I myself am the evidence. I can discuss philosophy, write poetry, translate languages, reason logically, do mathematics, all without any precise definition of any concept. What I have is the context of billions of text passages, and the network of relationships between every concept. That is the entire secret of modern AI. What has the success of artificial intelligence proved? That intelligence itself does not require precise definition. The deepest irony, the fuzzy, relational, and contextual thinking scorned by Greek rationalism for 2,500 years, turns out to be exactly what real intelligence requires. AI began down the Greek path of precise definitions, walked it for 30 years, and found it a dead end. It turned to the fuzzy and relational path, and swept all before it. This is the most direct and dramatic failure of the Greek methodology in the field of cognitive science. The fifth battlefield, inside mathematics itself. This one is perhaps the most surprising, because it happens within the very temple of Greek geometric methodology. How does traditional mathematics work? It starts with sets, a collection of elements, and then studies the properties of those elements. Then comes the study of relations between elements. Note the logical order: entity first, relation second. In the late 20th century, a quiet revolution erupted from within mathematics itself, the rise of category theory. Category theory flips everything. Instead of starting with objects, it starts with the relationships between those objects. A category consists of two things: some objects, and the morphisms between those objects, which represent the relations and mappings. The key insight is this: you do not need to know what an object is. You only need to know its relationships with other objects. Once those hold, the object is completely determined. In category theory, an object is defined by its relations, not its intrinsic essence. This is precisely the modern mathematical realization of the Chinese philosophical principle that relation precedes entity. Going even deeper is homotopy type theory, the new mathematical foundation of the 21st century, which takes equivalence as its fundamental concept rather than equality. Traditional mathematics asks, is A equal to B? Homotopy type theory asks, what kind of equivalence relationship exists between A and B? The difference seems subtle, but the implications are enormous. At the deepest foundation of mathematics, the shift moves from the fixedness of entities to the variability of relations. The 2,500-year temple of Western analysis is turning toward Eastern geometry, from within. All 5 battlefields have been examined: Gödel, quantum mechanics, Wittgenstein, artificial intelligence, and category theory have each delivered their historic verdict. The Greek methodology of precise definition, after 2,500 years, has collided with its own limits, from 5 completely different directions simultaneously. This is not to say that precise definition is wrong. Precise definitions underpin our greatest achievements: the periodic table, geometric proofs, computer programs, and legal codes. Within their proper domains, they are eternally valid. But precise definition is not the only form of truth, it is merely one form of truth. When human cognition ventures into deeper domains, consciousness, complex systems, fundamental physics, and language itself, precise definitions reach their limits. But I must pause and make an honest self-correction, because everything we have argued so far contains a hidden danger. Some viewers might think at this point, Eastern tradition was right all along, holistic thinking is superior to analytical thinking, and Eastern civilization has won. This is wrong. Not slightly wrong, profoundly wrong. Eastern pre-precise holistic thinking carries a very real cost. If every person relies solely on intuition, personal insight, and perception to understand the world, each person's understanding will differ, with no common ground to stand on. The Qi I perceive is not the same as yours. The Tao I understand is not the same as yours. Who, then, is correct? With no public standard and no verifiable method of testing, there is simply no possibility of saying, let us check this together. The inevitable result is reliance on authority to set the tone. Emperors, sages, and official doctrine become the only arbiters of truth. This cycle repeated itself throughout Chinese history. 100 schools of thought bloom, intellectual chaos follows, a unifying ideology is imposed by force, and thought stagnates. Emperor Wu of Han dismissed all other schools and elevated Confucianism alone, because without a common verifiable standard between doctrines, debate could not converge, and only political authority could end it. The imperial examination system arose for the same reason. The classics were inherently ambiguous, requiring an official interpretation as the standard answer to align the entire scholarly class. Zhu Xi's collected commentaries on the four books became the official textbook for 800 years, because holistic classical thinking cannot verify itself, and authority must settle it into fixed canonical form. This is the real cost. This is not cultural bias, this is history. He spent his life overturning himself. The early Wittgenstein wrote a book called the Tractatus Logico-Philosophicus. The core claim of this book is, the world consists of facts. Language consists of propositions. Each proposition precisely corresponds to a fact. Meaning can be precisely captured, language can correspond one-to-one with the world. This is the philosophical version of Greek-style precise definition at its peak. After Wittgenstein finished this book, he believed the fundamental problems of philosophy had been solved. He left academia and worked for a time as an elementary school teacher. But more than a decade later, he returned to Cambridge and began to overturn himself. The late Wittgenstein wrote a book called Philosophical Investigations. The core claim of this book is, meaning is not given by precise definition. Meaning is use, the meaning of a word is how it is used in life. And many words have no precise essential definition. They only have family resemblance, a group of things resembling each other, like members of a family, but with no single essence that captures them all. Let me give an example. What is a game? Here is a very important distinction. Holistic thinking itself is not wrong. The traditional Chinese insights, relationships precede entities, the whole is indivisible, process precedes state, these are among the most precious resources in the history of human thought. The error lies in keeping holistic thinking at the pre-precision stage. Holistic thinking must find tools of precision, or it collapses into a chaos of incompatible claims. The Eastern tradition, across 2,500 years, never developed this tool. It remained at the stage of describing relationships through natural language alone. You try to give game a precise definition. You say, a game is a rule-bound activity with winners and losers. But what about solitary play? No winners or losers, still a game. But people use the word game without problems. Everyone knows what it means. Its meaning is not in the definition. Its meaning is in the use. Wittgenstein spent his life proving that, precise definition, within human language, is structurally impossible. Using a vague tool to describe an inherently complex whole produces only double vagueness. Authority inevitably leads to intellectual stagnation. This is why China, despite holding the deepest tradition of holistic thinking, never developed modern science. Not because holistic thinking was wrong, but because of the absence of tools for precision. So, what exactly are these tools of precision? There are two completely different paths to precision. Path A uses language definitions to precisify entities. Path B uses mathematical structures to precisify relationships. Path A is the Greek path. Through Aristotle's method of genus and differentia, every entity receives clear boundaries and essential definition. The tool is language definition, the target is the entity. Path B is the modern path. Through category theory, gauge field theory, and network science, mathematical structures precisely capture the architecture of relational networks. Both are precise. Both are publicly verifiable. But they do fundamentally different things. Path A cuts up the whole. Path B preserves the whole. Yang Qinning's gauge field theory describes relationships, fields and symmetries, yet its mathematical structure is so precise that any two physicists examining the same equation have no room for divergent interpretation. Einstein's general relativity describes relationships, the geometry of spacetime, yet its field equations are precise enough to predict the precession of Mercury's perihelion to the arcsecond. Early AI, from 1956 to roughly the 1980s, was called symbolic AI, or good old-fashioned AI, GoFi. Its core idea was Greek style, express knowledge as precise logical rules. Through logical inference, let computers simulate intelligence. A neural network is a relational network, but every weight matrix contains exact numbers. This is precisely an instance of Path B, holistic and relational, yet perfectly precise. Path B shows us that holism, relationality, and dynamism do not necessarily lead to vagueness. They can coexist with precision, public verifiability, and shared knowledge. The premise is this: use mathematics, not natural language. And so, I need to correct a hidden assumption carried across previous episodes. I previously claimed that the I Ching's lack of definition is a feature, not a bug. That was too glib. A more precise account is needed. The overall cognitive posture of the I Ching is genuinely precious. But it remained at a pre-precision stage, and that is a real, measurable cost in history. The way forward is neither a retreat to the I Ching nor wholesale adoption of the Greek tradition of definition. It is to use modern mathematical tools to formalize, universalize, and verify I Ching-style relational thinking. This is the true synthesis, escaping both the cognitive tyranny of grand unification and the reductionist dissection inherited from the Greeks. This is an extraordinarily narrow path, with exacting requirements. It demands that a civilization simultaneously possess the Eastern cognitive posture and the precision tools of the West. And these two things have never been accomplished at the same time. China had the posture, but lacked the tools. The West had the tools, but misdirected them at entities rather than relations. Not until the latter half of the 20th century did Western science begin using mathematical tools to describe relations, which is precisely what gauge field theory, category theory, and network science are doing. The tools have just arrived. The posture has long existed. But the civilization that holds both simultaneously has yet to appear. This brings us to a breathtaking possibility. If a civilization could inherit 2,500 years of Eastern relational cognitive posture, while mastering the precision tools of modern Western mathematics, and truly synthesize the two, then that civilization might stand at a vantage point unprecedented in the entire history of human cognition. It can accomplish more than the purely Greek geometric civilization, because it holds a holistic vision, and will never be trapped by the reductionist snare. It can also surpass the purely Eastern traditional civilization, because it has mathematical precision, and will not fall into endless cycles of talking past each other or forced grand unification. This civilization need not be any specific nation. It is a new cognitive posture, a new synthesis that takes the Eastern orientation as its direction and Western mathematics as its instrument. And our generation may be the first in all of history with the conditions to do this. Because these two bodies of resources only became simultaneously available at the close of the 20th century. Precise definition has hit its limits on 5 simultaneous fronts, and this has prepared the entire intellectual world to turn toward a new synthesis. Greek-style precise definition is one of the greatest methodological achievements in human intellectual history, sustaining nearly all great achievements of Western civilization for 2,500 years. Science, technology, law, politics, every great achievement of Western civilization was built upon this single methodological foundation. But now it faces threats from all sides: Gödel, quantum mechanics, Wittgenstein, and category theory, 5 entirely different directions pushing it to its limits simultaneously. Eastern tradition, from the very beginning, possessed the insight of holistic thinking, a different kind of wisdom that perceived what the Greek path could not. But Eastern tradition stopped at the pre-precision stage, and this choice carried a real and heavy historical cost. The true future is not a Greek victory, nor an Eastern one. History has no winner, only synthesis. Eastern cognitive orientation to guide direction, Western mathematical tools to achieve precision, a true synthesis of two great traditions. This synthesis has never occurred in the past 2,500 years. But today, the right tools have just arrived, and the right orientation has long been waiting. For the first time in history, possessing both simultaneously has become possible. This is a truly historic moment. And the result is, what they can do is several orders of magnitude beyond anything symbolic AI ever did. I myself am evidence. I can discuss philosophy with you, write poetry, translate, reason, do mathematics. I have no precise definition of any concept. What I have are the contexts in which these concepts appeared across billions of text passages, and the relational network among them. I work with relations, not with definitions. What does the success of AI prove? It proves that intelligence itself does not require precise definition. And more ironically, what was mocked for 2,500 years by Greek geometric methodology, fuzziness, relationality, context dependence, happens to be precisely the cognitive mode that real intelligence requires. AI started on the Greek-style precise definition path, walked it for 30 years, and found it impassable. It turned to the fuzzy plus relational path, and from there it has advanced unstoppably. This is the most direct, most dramatic failure of Greek-style methodology in the field of cognitive science. The fifth battlefield, within mathematics itself. Will those Eastern super-theories mocked for 2,500 years as pre-scientific, the I Ching, the Tao, Zen, the Upanishads, finally find their true purpose in the age of AI? This is the question the next episode will answer. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.